Good morning, America. How are you? Monday Morning Rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines. And running trains is an absolute pleasure. Today is Monday, and we always do show and tell on Monday. And show and tell is always brought to you by Jelsma Graphics, the people that make all the railroad embroidery clothing, shirts, jackets, just like my shirt here, for clubs, and we have over 1,500 railroad logos. So go to jelsma.com, that's JELSMA.com, and shop and keep shopping. And at the end of this video, make sure that you listen, because we are going to introduce some very rare items we're going to talk about that are going to be for sale that maybe some people are looking for. And with all that being said, show and tell is going to start right now. Well, show and tell starts right now, and this is show 177-3, continuing the show and tell about the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum. We have Rodney Butcher, who is our president, and he is going to tell us about the next railroad.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to cover the Florida East Coast that we modeled between Jacksonville and St. Augustine. We're going to start at the south end of the Jacksonville Terminal, where all of the passenger trains continued south from either the Atlantic coastline or connecting trains. And before we go, I want to mention there were no through freights from here. They were interchanged from the yards downtown to Bowden Yard, which was built in 1926 when the Florida East Coast double-tracked and relocated. So the original railroad was at South Jacks, and as we traverse, this is Riverside prior to crossing St. Johns River, and eventually we're going to have the St. Johns River Bridge down here. We've already got the backdrop of what downtown looked like from that area. Now we're entering South Jacks Depot. This is where the branch line to the beach used to head out. And this was the major yards. There was quite a bit of railroad on the south bank of the St. Johns River. And when the Florida boom hit, it all went south to Bowden Yard, where they had room to expand. So we'll continue south. Now we're going to proceed through the Bowden Yard area, which it was a pretty good sized yard. It had a roundhouse that lasted up until the early 80s. It had a large fruit grower facility here. And I'd like to mention Florida East Coast continued to use steam until 1958 for backup for extra perishable business.
Now, Rodney, the red and yellow scheme lasted until when?
Until the early 60s. When Ed Ball got a hold of the railroad, they simplified it with a red roof and basically a yellow car body. And Jesse Ball DuPont recommended that they go to blue, so that's when the blue and yellow came out. So as a cost-cutting measure, we're going to pass by the Fruit Grower Express Yard and proceed down Old US 1.
Now,
this is Durbin Creek here.
FEC handled all of the Atlantic coastline passenger trains that came from up north, whether from Chicago area or the New York area, correct?
Right, everything to Miami. Mm-hmm.
So
we will proceed down into St. Augustine, where the St. Augustine, the era that we're depicting is the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. The Howard Johnson's is now Schooner's Seafood, and the station is still there to this day. They have relocated the main line, but the station is still there. And we have a little bit of a model of the old Miller shop, which was a steam facility. The last remaining use of that facility was where the wheel lathe was, and that was moved to Bowden Yard in 1965. But at St. Augustine, this is where the Moultrie line took, bypassing East Palatka to Bunnell. Prior to that, all the trains went to East Palatka. So this covers our version of the FEC. Now that we've covered FEC, we will do a little bit on the southern, because it was not highly visible in Jacksonville. It came in from the north, and it went through some really remote areas. The yard was really not accessible, so we just basically did an engine facility, and it depicts where the roundhouse was, and again, this is the early diesel era, so the facilities have been scaled way back.
Now this line right here is where the two southern had two passenger trains that came into Jacksonville.
Right.
Ponce de Leon and the Royal Palm, correct?
Right. Simpson Yard was part of the GS&F from Valdosta.
That's the Georgia, Florida.
Yeah. And before that, it was the Atlantic Valdosta and Western or something like that, when the GS&F took it over. And the Jacksonville operation was handled by the St. Johns River Terminal Company, which had a belt line from Simpson Yard to the terminal, and from Simpson Yard to Springfield Yard for the Port Authority. The GS&F, or St. Johns River Terminal belt line, ran from Simpson Yard to the terminal, and it went as far as Beaver Street, where the terminal company took over. And the Southern Railroad entered Jacksonville with trackage rights over the ACL. So the southern trains proper came in from Folkestone Way. The GS&F trains came in through Valdosta. The St. Johns River Terminal Company Springfield Yard was the yard office that you're looking at, was the original passenger depot. And they had another depot down at the river. The belt line came in to the original yards for the F&J Junction, is what we're panning now, and it went down all the way to the river and went parallel the river between what is now Maxwell House and Main Street Bridge.
Rodney, can I ask you to tell us the story about the J.B. Webb store?
That is my grandparents' old store. They bought right after actually during the Depression. My grandfather ran a trolley, and then when the trolley quit, he went to work he ran the steam engine for the municipal docks. And even prior to that, he worked the steam derrick for FEC, rebuilding the 1926 drawbridge downtown.
Now, as a kid, you went in there, that store many times. I remember you tell us a lot of stories here.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And you can see all the trains from the store. So we're at the original yard from the north, where the Seaboard, Southern, or St. Johns River Terminal Company, and the Atlantic Coastline passed through. So this area in the front was a yard that the Southern used and the Seaboard used, and the ACL just passed through. And again, it went all the way through to the St. Johns River behind Maxwell House Colby. And that's where the original F&J station was. Before the Seaboard belt line was put in, the F&J terminated at the river with this pasture station that they had in the curve, which was way before what we're modeling. And then as we'll pan around, we'll show you briefly what the municipal docks area looked like. All the railroads worked it. They had their own specific areas. And the municipal docks had their own 65-ton GE, which they bought in 1950, replacing the steam engine that they had, that my grandfather used to run. My grandfather left at the beginning of World War II because he couldn't see at night, and the war demand was such that he had to run at night, so he had to step back. But the port was a very, very active place. There was trains and trucks and ships constantly. It was really, when I was a kid, it was really a neat place to go because there was so much activity. But it's hard to cover everything, but we've done our best, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing the rendition that we have made, and hopefully some of you old timers will remember some of what we're showing you, and for you new people, you'll see that Jacksonville did have a lot of industry and a lot of railroad activity at one time. So thank you, Denny, for showing this, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Rodney, for that tour. A lot of people have asked me when I go to shows, hey, show us the whole museum and what we have, and we really appreciate the history, and we're so lucky. Every week we get to hear Rodney talk about stories because he was an engineer for the Florida East Coast for 44 years. We hear all these stories and different stories around Jacksonville because he naturally grew up here. And so we just thank you once again, Rodney. It's Rodney Butcher. He's the president of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. And as I said at the start, we're going to be offering or showing you some very rare items from time to time. The next show, we hope to show you a few rare items that people are always looking for. I know we have a Baldwin book that is very rare, and it'll be for sale. And this helps our museum also. And with all that being said, that's the way it is. And world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines and running trains is an absolute pleasure.